y'all, welcome back to Heritage Ways, and I'm Miss Katie, and I've introduced you the other day in this video where we're going through my wardrobe. I introduced you to my niece Chloe.
Hi.
I've asked Chloe to talk to us a little bit about one of her very favorite topics in the whole wide world.
Probably second only to travel.
I was going to say books. Okay, now you homeschool. And we're going to talk more about that in another video as well. So we'll just say you homeschool. You haven't homeschooled your entire educational life, but we'll talk about that in another video. And we'll link that up here when we get that video made. But Chloe homeschools. What grade are you in now or going into?
I'm going into my 11th grade.
Going into 11th grade. Oh, you're going to make KK feel old. Woo, okay. Now, I want to just ask this one question. How important has reading been to you in your, not just homeschool life, but you've always loved to read. It's not because of homeschooling, right?
Yeah.
So how important has that been in your education so far?
Oh, I can't even say. I mean, but I think it's just getting started at a young age. Like, I don't know if I'd be into reading if my parents just hadn't bought me books when I was a baby, and we have pictures of me as a baby holding a picture book in front of my face upside down, just because, and it's become such a big part of my life that I don't know, I can't imagine being me without always loving to read. And I even kind of learned how to read when I was in kindergarten, first grade. My family, as a family, at night we would sit around the fire, sit at the dinner table, and read. We read through the entire Little House on the Prairie series. And that kind of kick-started a little bit of my love of history. And now, as a family, we're going through the Chronicles of Narnia series. And so that's another thing, is reading as a family that kind of shaped our family dynamic, really.
Good points, good. And I'll interject, this is not about homeschooling, this video, because when you went through the Little House on the Prairie series, you were not homeschooling. So this video is not about homeschooling.
No. Okay, so when KK first contacted me about doing a video like this, she said, what are your top 5 favorite books? And I could not do that. Like, I do have my favorite book series ever. It is here, but I cannot narrow down my top 5 favorite books. So I have narrowed down to 4 different genres, and I'm just kind of go from there.
All right, this is great. Okay.
So my favorite genre is historical fiction. I absolutely love historical fiction. So our first book today is going to be Interrupted by Rachel Coker, but I'm just going to say, if you like World War II history, you will love this. I read it in one afternoon the first time I read it. Yeah, I read it in one afternoon and I fell in love. The writing style is like nothing I've really read before. I can't even describe it. And it was written actually by a 14-year-old girl who was homeschooled, and she published it when she was 16, and I have gifted it to many, many friends, and they're all astonished when they finish it, and they're like, there's no way this was written by a 14-year-old girl, but it was, and so that's what I would recommend. It's got a really beautiful redemption story of this girl, Allie, who comes to know Christ through her foster mother, so that was really good.
Well, that's neat. By the way, we're not being sponsored by anybody. These are Chloe's opinions. And if somebody wants to sponsor you, you're up for that, right?
Yeah, this is a disclaimer that this is just my personal opinions. If you personally don't like any of these books, don't throw tomatoes at me. Or
books at you. Don't throw books at you. Okay, all right, so yes, so we will write the names down below. All right.
Okay, so my next book is Hattie Big Sky by Kirby Larson. It's about a girl who goes to live, after her uncle passes away, she goes to live on his farm in Montana, and it takes place, in 1918. So she has a young man of hers that goes off to war, and so that's really good. I really love this one. Another one that I read very quickly, and there's a sequel, which is good because this ends on a cliffhanger. So I recommend if you're reading this one, get this second book.
Have it ready at hand.
Have it ready. And so in this one, I won't tell you what happens in the first one, but in this one, Hattie makes a big change in her life, and she moves to San Francisco in the 1920s. So I really love these. And I will say that both of these, that Interrupted has a lot more faith content, but there's no questionable content in either of these. There's a hint of romance in both of them, but nothing that I wouldn't recommend. So
okay.
I recommend.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I recommend all these books for ages 10 to 18.
Okay.
And then our second genre is going to be fantasy, and you can see how battered my copy is. It's falling apart, honestly. And this is my second copy. I had an original one, and it just the front cover fell off, so I bought a new one, and now the front cover's about to come off of this one. So
it's a Newbery, right?
It is.
Okay.
So this is called Princess Academy by Shannon Hale, and it is a fantasy story. So it's about these, basically every year, the priests of this kingdom, they look at the stars to see where the next princess is coming from. And then they gather all the young ladies. It's kind of actually based off of the story of Esther. They gather all of the young ladies from that kingdom and basically present them to the prince, and the prince just chooses one. Well, one year when the prince becomes of age and the priests look to the stars, it shows that it's this mountain village that one of the girls is to come, that the princess is to come from. And so everyone is astonished because they're like, it can't be somebody from this, tiny mountain village. So it's basically the story of these girls preparing for a year to meet the prince.
It does sound like Esther in the Bible.
Yeah. So this one's really good. And there is a sequel that I highly recommend called Palace of Stone. And it's about the main girl in the first one who, I won't tell you how it ends, but she kind of gets a lot of courage in the first book, and enough to journey to the capital of the kingdom and to kind of get her education for the first time, because she's always grown up in this little tiny town. And I won't tell you what happens.
No, don't tell us what happens. But
there's a lot of action in this one.
I have a couple of questions because I can hear our friends asking. So what makes it fantasy, and is there any level of witchcraft in it? What makes it fantasy? Because somebody might ask us that.
So I just put it as fantasy because it's kind of historical fiction, but you can't place it in an exact time. I would say kind of medieval times, really. But what happens is the mountain village where they are, they make their money and their living by carving out stone from the town quarry. And it's kind of fantasy because the people who work in this quarry can kind of speak through the stone.
Okay, that's right. And then would you say, I say Chronicles of Narnia is fantasy. Isn't that fantasy?
Oh, yeah.
But it's not...
that's way more fantasy than this. That has a lot more magic than this does.
Yeah, okay. All right, great. Well, let's keep going.
So this one is Once Upon a Marigold by Jean Ferris, and I have not read this one in years. I read this all the time when I was younger, but I just haven't picked it up lately, but it is really good. The front cover says, Once Upon a Marigold, part comedy, part love story, part everything but the kitchen sink. And that is a very good way to describe this book. It's kind of just, it's hilarious. And I remember literally laughing out loud when I read this book when I was younger. This one is actually different from some of the others because all these others I mentioned are about the voice of a young lady. It comes from a young lady's perspective, but this is a young man's perspective trying to win his lady love. And it is...
All right. But okay, again, I'm asking questions that they might ask. So you're not sharing anything that's like heavy romance or or anything like that, because I know there's a lot of that stuff on the bookshelves nowadays. If you go to Barnes and Noble and look at the juvenile section, oh my word, or the young adult, nothing I would want little Miss Homemaker to be reading.
Yeah. All of this, I do like to read romance, and so all of this all of this is romance I have here. But there's no questionable content in any of this.
Right.
So now classics, and this is one where these other ones you might not have heard of that you definitely heard of these classics, but these are just what I recommend for young girls who kind of want to be challenged by a book, and they want to read big words, and they want to. Because that was me when I was younger. I wanted to, spend a whole entire summer reading one book just because I could.
And did.
Yeah. So, dun dun dun. Drum roll. My absolutely favorite book is Anne of Green Gables.
Oh,
yeah. Prince Edward Island. For anyone who's read this book, Prince Edward Island is the top of my bucket list for travel. I have not been there yet, and I want to so bad. So this is another book.
Hey, when we go on our Heritage Homestead journey and we go there, would you fly up there to meet us?
Yes, I totally would.
Okay.
I just need my parents to let me.
Okay, well it'll be a while, but okay.
Okay, so I don't have all of them. Surprise, surprise. There's 8 in the series, and I have the first 7, and I've only read the first 6 because I just haven't gotten around to it. But as you can tell, this copy is very worn, and just like with Princess Academy, this was not my first copy.
Yeah, hold those while you're talking.
Yeah, and I could go into a whole video just saying why I love Anne Shirley and the Cuthberts, and why I want to move to Avonlea. But this is a really good one, and honestly, yeah, it'll teach girls a lot. So if you're looking for good life lessons, this is a really good one. And there's no romance in this one, but obviously because Anne gets married in the 5th book, there is romance in 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, but it's good, clean, and appropriate, and they're courting, right?
Yeah, I mean, it takes place in the 1870s and 80s, and Gilbert Blythe. I'm just gonna say right now, ladies, Gilbert Blythe. Just read this book.
Period. The end. Okay. How many books are in this? 9?
There's 8.
8. So you're missing the last one.
Yes, I don't have the last one. Because 6, 7, and 8 are kind of more focused on our children. So.
Okay.
So my second classic book is called Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster, and this is one that you hear about Anne of Green Gables a lot. You hear about Little Women. You hear about lots of those classics, but I never really hear about this one, which surprises me so much because this book is a gem. It is the story of Jerusha Abbott, who everybody calls Judy, and she's lived at an orphanage all her life, and she gets a mysterious benefactor who pays to send her to college on one condition, that she will write him weekly updates on her life and how her education's going. And she calls this man Daddy Longlegs because one day she saw him through a window and she just saw his back and he was really tall, and so she said, I'll call you Daddy Longlegs.
So she had never met him.
She'd never
met him. Don't spoil it for us, but
I won't spoil it, but I will say the moment she finally meets him, I cried. I'm
trying to figure out when it was first published in 1912. So it's an old book. Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah,
it's
a classic.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to say, Chloe, I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of Daddy Longlegs? So in this book, it's just her letters to him, and they're hilarious. The author drew little drawings for Jerusha to write to Daddy Longlegs, and these drawings are the funniest little doodles.
Is this a series or not?
There is a couple sequels, but I think they're more spin-offs. I haven't read those.
You can read this old standalone.
Yeah, okay. You can. And I highly recommend finding yourself, maybe not this edition, but an edition where it does include the drawings, because there are some that don't include the drawings, but it is a fun little edition.
All right, good.
So,
and I'm going to throw in here, I noticed a couple of these have Goodwill stickers. You do that's how I built not the majority, but a great percentage of my collection of books.
Yeah.
Is going to Goodwill and thrift stores, so you don't have to spend tons of money, especially if the books have been out a while and they're classics.
One of my favorite places to get books is, I get Goodwill a lot, but it's thriftbooks.com. Have you heard of it?
No.
It is so great.
Okay, thank you for the tip. Thriftbooks.com.
Thriftbooks.com. They're not always in the greatest condition. Sometimes covers are falling off. But if you need books for school, if you need textbooks, they have textbooks there.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't really care if my math book is falling apart. I could care less.
Okay, they know how much I don't like math, and we're in the same family when it comes to that, right? We struggle through and we get it done because we have to, so that we can go on and read a book.
Exactly.
That's right. Okay.
All
right.
So now on to
thriftbooks.com.
contemporary books.
Contemporary. I'm not familiar with this. Okay.
Now this is a very tall series, almost as much as my Anne of Green Gables, and this is another gem that I absolutely love. This is the Mother-Daughter Book Club.
Mother-Daughter Book Club. I'm not familiar with this either. Do you know
Well, you should be, because what happens is each of these books. So they start when the girls are in sixth grade. So
girls.
Yes.
More than one girl.
It's
okay.
four.
Junior
It's
health.
four.
Okay.
So 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. It follows these girls through middle and high school, all the ups and downs of their lives, and each year they read a new novel with their moms, and they gather once a month to talk about that novel. So, and each book kind of centers a little more, like each year, each girl has kind of their own big thing that happens in their lives. And I won't spoil anything, but I can remember the first time I read these because I was in 4th grade, and like I said, the first book starts when they're in 6th grade, so it was a struggle for me to get through. But I was like, I want to be those 6th grade girls. They're so big, they're so cool, they're oh my goodness. And now I'm reading them, and they're my age, and I'm like, I can relate to this. So, and they're all clean, and so, I mean, yeah, I really, there's not much else I can say about these except,
Where does this family live? Fictional family of mother and daughters.
They live in Concord, Massachusetts.
Concord, Massachusetts.
Which I'm visiting in the fall, and I am very, very excited to be
okay.
visiting the home of the Mother-Daughter Book Club. So it follows, oh goodness.
Now I'm going to say, those of us who are familiar with terminology surrounding homeschooling, us moms, parents, even school teachers, you may or may not be familiar with the term dumbing down. And many books that were written after a certain decade really are just really dumbed down. And this isn't just my opinion, this is proven, and whether it's textbooks or whatever. So I'm asking you, I don't gravitate towards recently written or modern books necessarily for my children because of the dumbed down literature that's out there. So how do you feel about this when we're talking about books that are dumbed down these days? I mean, what about the words, the everything? Just
so I feel like this is one of the newest book. This probably except for the last book I have for you today. This is the newest book of this is the newest book series, and I feel like I can see that like from these books to these books. But what you can take from these is more than anything else because they talk a lot. So each year, like I said, they read a new book. And I learned so much about these classic books. They read Little Women. They read Anne of Green Gables. They read Daddy Long Legs. That's actually how I found out about Daddy Long Legs.
So it encouraged you to read the classic stuff too. So you've got that angle.
So they read a lot of books. And then because they talk about the lives of the author, they talk about the... One thing I really loved in these books, how they would read a book and be like, that's me. These girls, Anne Shirley and Jerusha Abbott, they lived 100 years ago, but they're going through the same struggles that I am, even now. And I really like that, and that encouraged me to read the book, 6 out of 7. And I want to show you something very, very special. So this was Wish You Were Air, because they read Jane Eyre. For Christmas, I want to say 2015, I got this book, and I was very excited because it's the newest Heather Vogel-Frederick book. Now, Heather Vogel-Frederick is one of my favorite authors. She wrote this series, and she wrote a couple other series, and I love her. And I open up, and I'm so excited to get this book. It's brand new, and I open up the cover, and it's signed by Heather Vogel-Frederick.
Oh, my word.
Yes. It says, "Wishing you happy reading, Chloe. Love, Heather Vogel."
Oh, how awesome.
So this was awesome.
That is awesome.
So unbeknownst to me, my mom had bought this book, sent it all the way to Seattle, and with a note asking Heather Vogel-Frederick to sign it.
That is awesome.
And then she sent it back signed, and that.
How very awesome.
Yeah. So it may be on my bucket list to meet Heather Vogel-Frederick.
Yeah.
If you're out there, I would love to meet you.
Yes. Could you please? Yeah, we'll send this video to her.
Yeah.
Want to do that?
Yeah.
All right.
So my final book is The Coronation by Livy, and I'm going to boggle this name. I'm so sorry, Livy.
So Jarmusch, and we don't want to botch it, so we just won't pronounce
this one is a very big book, but it's very special to me because I am friends with Livy online through Goodreads, and I'll link her Goodreads below.
Fun.
But this is, if anybody out there likes The Princess Diaries, you will love this book. Because it takes place in...
I like The Princess Diaries.
Because it takes place in a fictional country in Europe, Tarsarella. I want to move there. And it just follows the royal family. And there are a lot of characters, so if you have a hard time keeping up with the characters, I would say read this one along with a notebook to jot down each of the characters.
Good point, yeah.
Because it switches. And so this one has a lot of faith content because there's this there's several daughters in the royal family, and they all are struggling to kind of find their way in life.
All right. Well, thank you, Chloe. So, starting young, reading as a family. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I know. All right. Y'all, we will write down below what you need to know, and we hope you'll join us for the next video. Bye.
And make sure you put in the comments if you've read any of these books and any recommendations you have.
Absolutely.
For young girls.
Very good. Very good. All right, I'll keep her. Okay, thanks for watching, y'all.
Thanks.
We'll look forward to seeing what you read seeing what you write down below about what you read. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.